Carl, it looks like we have everybody. You ready to start?
I am ready.
Okay.
Are we in practice mode still?
No, I'm getting ready to push the start button. You ready?
I'm ready. Good evening and welcome to the first virtual meeting of the Santa Barbara Airport Commission this August 19th, 2020.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
I'll start with a roll call, please.
Okay, Commissioner Goodman.
Here.
Commissioner Arcuri.
Here.
Commissioner Houghton.
Here.
Commissioner Wilson.
Here.
Commissioner Khan.
Here.
Vice Chair Bowen.
Here.
Chair Hopkins.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
The next item is notices that on Friday, August 14th at 2020 at 5 p.m., the Airport Commission Secretary duly posted the agenda on the bulletin board at the airport administration. This is a time for public comment. Any member of the public may address the Airport Commission on any subject within its jurisdiction that is not scheduled for an item on this day. The total time for public comments, 15 minutes, and no individual speaker may speak for more than 3 minutes.
And
Madam
Chair
Secretary.
Hopkins.
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, Chair Hopkins. I just want to make sure you're aware that there are no changes to the agenda as well.
Thank you very much. I skipped over that. Thank you, Director Thompson. The notices, or the public comment, I'm sorry, do we have any public comment speakers?
If you are a member of the public and you would like to make a comment, if you would please use the raised hand icon on your screen, and that lets me know that you want to comment on a matter that is not currently on the agenda. I see one raised hand. Chair Hopkins, it looks like that is the only one. Joseph Moore would like to comment.
Okay, Joseph, go ahead.
Joseph, just a moment. If you would unmute your microphone, you can go ahead and start speaking. Joseph Moore, can you hear me? Mr. Moore? Let me check. Would you unmute your, there you go.
All right, sorry about that. I know we're all new to the virtual meetings. Well, first of all, I want to say happy National Aviation Day to everybody. I hope you guys were able to celebrate it and do something aviation related. And I also want to express my appreciation for this meeting. It's been a long time since we've been able to meet like this and share in this airport governance. I'd say my main comment, because I also submitted a written comment, and so I hope all the commissioners were able to review that. But my main comment is probably on the agenda itself, in that there are many issues that I know the airport is working diligently to address, yet none of them seem to appear on this meeting's agenda. For instance, the last meeting, a big item of discussion was the changes or possible changes to the minimum standard requirements. At the last meeting, there had been, the city had entered into um, an agreement with a agency to help us review the minimum standards. There was a timeline for the process. And so I would assume that we would maybe get an update on that process at this meeting. In addition to that, we've been made aware of the fact that there's at least one Part 13 complaint lodged against the city. I've got reason to believe that there may be two, and I find it very interesting that neither of those have made it onto the agenda for this meeting either. I feel that those are very, those could be become, very critical issues to the airport in regards to funding and such. And I imagine that the commission, as well as the general public, would be interested in hearing how the airport is addressing these issues. Lastly, I've been communicating with Director Thompson as well as George Aiken at the FAA in regards to my personal belief that there could be an issue with the airport's policy of prohibition on self-service of aircraft. I personally believe that it could violate the Grant Assurance 22 paragraph F. And I've voiced these concerns with the airport administration as well as the FAA. George Aiken gave me a phone call as well as a letter stating that he agreed with my interpretation of the compliance regulation. However, since then, the airport has responded to him saying that they are not in agreement. So where this goes, I'm not sure at this point. I think it's an ongoing matter. However, I just find it very concerning that these important topics wouldn't be brought before the Airport Commission. I know that the Airport Commission is only an advisory body. However, I think it's a very important advisory body because City Council makes these final decisions. And from my conversations with the mayor and other City Council representatives, they don't have a whole lot of aviation knowledge. So this commission serves as that bridge between the aviation world and the City Council. And so I just think that I think the commission's importance is being a little bit maybe understated. And I would hope that we could maybe discuss these issues in a public forum such as this, which I believe is kind of part of why the commission exists. So with that, I yield the rest of my time. And again, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys and look forward to the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moore. Are there any other public comments? Where did our secretary go? I'm sure she'll be back.
There are no other raised hands.
Okay, the next item is liaison reports, and I see Councilman Friedman there. Oh, do you have a report for us, sir?
Thank you, Chair Hopkins. I actually don't have much. I'm just glad that we're able to have the first virtual meeting. And I know that Mr. Moore, public comment, has sent council some correspondence. And I am following up on some of these issues with Director Thompson to understand those issues more that are not on the agenda tonight. So other than that, I have no reports, but just glad to be here and observe tonight's agenda.
Thank you very much. And I do not see our Goleta liaison. Madam Secretary, is he available here?
He is not.
Okay, so then the next item we go to is item number 4, the director's report. Director Thompson?
Good evening, commissioners. It has been approximately 6 months since we last met formally in February of this year. Since then, we have experienced significant negative impact to our business resulting from the onset of the greatest pandemic we have seen in our lifetime. While we have seen our industry hit hard and recovered from other significant events, including 9/11 and economic downturns, those events came with a degree of predictability that permitted us to be able to estimate how and when we might recover. COVID-19 is different. In the 6 months that we've experienced this pandemic, we're still dealing with uncertainty and attempting to predict recovery in a constantly changing environment. The airport's response to this event has been consistent with city, state, and federal policies designed to ensure we remained open and operating safely, securely, efficiently, and in a financially responsible manner. This has come with many, many challenges. Very early into this pandemic, we pivoted to meet industry standards for creating an environment with enhanced safety protocols consistent with public health guidelines that are designed to minimize the spread of this coronavirus here at the airport. As essential workers, airport staff stepped up to meet these challenges head on to ensure we met our regulatory obligations, we provided needed services, and that our community continued to benefit from commercial air service and cargo moving through the airport. This pandemic did not allow a business as usual approach, but instead required out-of-the-box and real-time management of our business to ensure we met our current needs, restrictions, and threats. We continue this approach in managing the airport day to day. Despite the unprecedented challenges, we remain extremely optimistic about our business. While our business is down nearly 70% from last year, that is in line with airports across the nation. We are seeing a clear pattern of growth week over week that affirms there's improvement in our business. If ever we doubt the direction we're headed in, we only need to look back to where we were in April. Our business will recover. The only question is how quickly the recovery will be. Estimates vary widely and change week to week in response to changes in the pandemic. But our continued growth is consistent with our communications with the airlines, who are very much interested in returning to Santa Barbara at previous levels when demand calls for it. We see that confidence as flights are continuing to be added to the schedule and new routes are being announced in the coming weeks. Our business will recover when the public, again, feels safe to travel by air and when the local and national economies permit. But it is important to remember this pandemic is not over and will not be over for quite some time. With that in mind, we have to focus on modifying our business to meet the needs of the pandemic and keeping everyone safe. To that end, the safety measures we have in place ensure that we are ready when our customers are ready to fly again. We're projecting some improvement in our business over the next year. We've made it a priority to keep the commission updated in real time as we dealt with the many challenges we faced over the past few months. So on behalf of the staff, I want to thank this commission for being there and understanding the magnitude of this setback to our business. Having your support, particularly during these challenging times, is critically important for morale in the face of uncertainty, and to that, the success of the airport as well. Thank you. And next up, we have some staff reports, certification and operations.
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak during the director's report, Henry. And commissioners, good evening. It's been a long time and it's a pleasure to see your faces again. So very happy to be able to meet with you today, just share some operations related functions that I think you may have an interest in. Discussions surrounding the airport's minimum standards and the airport's commercial service activities have consumed much of our time since we last met. Ongoing dialogue continues with the FAA and locally to resolve the complaints that we've received directly from the FAA, both informal and formal. We are reviewing our consultants' work, which includes feedback from the public during the public engagement sessions that occurred earlier this year, and are considering our options as we move forward. We anticipate sharing our direction in the coming weeks. On July 28th, 2020, the airport also received a letter regarding the ability to perform self-service aircraft maintenance by aircraft operators and their direct employees. Beyond preventive maintenance, as is currently spelled out in the city's Hangar rules and regulations. Discussion continues with the FAA to ensure that the airport is in compliance while upholding the long-standing policies designed specifically to protect the hangars from damage. I am happy to report that the airport's access control system upgrade is also nearly complete. It was a lengthy process, and aside from some punch list items, we're at the finish line. During the last 6 months or so as we've engaged upon this product, we were operating 2 independent access control systems and video management systems for much of the transition. That came with expected operational challenges, not only with the system, but for our staff that were operating these systems concurrently and learning the new system. These issues were to be expected and were closely coordinated with the airport management team 24/7 around the clock since the project commenced. And that was in order to provide the best customer service possible that we could for our tenants and the users of the facility. We have now successfully transitioned all components of the old system over to the new system for access control and video management system requirements. This very much needed $2.2 million upgrade now brings our facility up to industry standards with significant capability improvements. And additionally, I'm happy to report on a second project that we've just completed, and that would be the airport's physical sound energy monitors. They are now back online following the failure of outdated equipment. These monitors were a $60,000 plus project that serve as a means for validating the noise contours that surround the airport that are created by FAA noise modeling standards. Current data confirms that the computer-generated FAA integrated noise models, commonly referred to as the INM models, are reporting accurately, and there are no homes surrounding the airport that are located within the threshold of significant noise as defined by the FAA and EPA. These monitors weigh the average ambient sound level over a 24-hour period, which may include standard noise sound energies such as lawnmowers and vehicles, in addition to aircraft activity. That's why we rely so heavily on the computer-generated noise monitors for accuracy. Ongoing communications between our team and our local community members continue to occur on a routine basis when clarification or questions arise about our noise advisory program. Phone calls and meetings are conducted on an almost weekly basis, if not more than once a week, in an effort to continue our education and outreach for both flight crews and our local constituents. With that, that concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aaron. Next up is business and development. Deanna.
All righty. Good evening, commissioners. Henry earlier used the verb pivot, and pivot is really very descriptive for what has been going on in business development since mid-March. Moving from a place where our business was vibrant, we had record numbers of passengers, to exactly the opposite. And our focus has really been to work very closely with our tenants, and that is tenants both on the aviation side and on the commercial side, to help them in any way that we have been able to, of course, in maintaining their business, and also working to maintain as best we can the revenue streams that come from those businesses. Different challenges across the board. Obviously, the commercial aviation side has been the greatest challenge to us. And commercial aviation, of course, also represents the largest shares of our revenues. So we have been working with those tenants, working with the airlines to manage that business. And again, as I said, the other side of the house, which is the commercial tenancies, working with those tenants that have a different set of challenges. It's been quite a bit of work, obviously, and we've had to be very flexible in our interactions with those tenants, particularly given the situation with the pandemic and the ability to freely move about and freely interact with our tenants as we would normally do. But if all things considered, we've all pulled together and are all working very collaboratively, recognizing that we're all in this together. There has not been a lot of the leasing activity during the last few months, obviously. However, we have been working in a quite focused way with our FBO development project. And I'm going to be speaking about that in a separate presentation in just a moment, but wanted to mention that. Other than that, we have been dealing with
Deanna, all of a sudden if you can hear me, stopped streaming. Can you reset your audio, see if that helps?
Sure. Did that help at all?
Yes, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
Yeah, I turned off the camera. Maybe that'll help just a little bit. Do you think?
Go for it.
Okay, excellent. All right. Hopefully, I managed to just close a little bit with that we have been working on the FBO development. I'll talk a little bit about that in my later presentation. And we have been working on our managing our budget, recognizing that we are still short-staffed on the budget side of things, working very closely with the city finance department in those matters. All in all, it's been a very interesting time, most certainly. Aviation is never dull, as we know, but we feel confident that we are still moving in the right direction and managing to keep our focus on our strategic priorities. So that's it for us.
Great, thanks, Deanna. Next up is facilities and maintenance with Jeff McKee.
Chair Hopkins, commissioners, good evening. I want to give you an update tonight about the measures we've been doing to address COVID-19 in the physical facility itself, some energy upgrade projects, and let you know where we are on those projects. As the passenger traffic is down, we've had some opportunities to get some projects done. On the COVID-19 front, we're working to make the terminal safe for passengers and users. Early on, we implemented a sanitizing schedule for high-tech surfaces, so our custodial staff is focused strongly on that sanitizing effort to make sure all those high-touch surfaces are sanitized multiple times a day. We've purchased a couple of electrostatic sprayers. Next week, we're going to train staff on that equipment, and we'll be doing applying a hospital-grade disinfectant to the public areas of the terminal daily. So that's a higher grade disinfecting process than the sanitizing process we're currently doing. We're going to use Oxivir 516 disinfectant. As I said, that's a hospital grade disinfectant listed by FAA to kill the COVID-19 virus. And it's the least toxic alternative for staff and for users. And it's safe on surfaces. So we're anxious to get that program going and improve the safety of our terminal, which we're already doing the sanitizing process. We also installed breath barriers at all the counters throughout the terminal. We've installed glass at the ticket counters, the boarding gates, baggage surface counters, and the computer kiosk in the hold room. So those have been received well. They look nice in the terminal, and they're creating that breath barrier for our passengers and our staff. We've also done plexiglass at the rental car counters because of the weight, and those are kind of much larger counters. So we took a different approach there. So breath barrier is all the counters where the public will be interfacing with staff in the terminal. Energy efficiency projects. We've done a couple of large energy efficiency projects since we last met. The hangars at 495 South Fairview, we retrofitted with LED throughout. So we replaced all the 400 watt incandescent fixtures in those hangars. They're 440 volt with LED. And then we also replaced all the fluorescent lighting in the office areas and other areas not used for aircraft storage. So that's a big savings for us. The project was funded through Edison rebates for the majority of the project. The rebates were $1,200 per kilowatt. The airport added $9,600 to upgrade to the 440 volt fixtures that were in the hangar, the hangar spaces. The payback for this project was only 0.16 years, and we reduced our load by 104 kilowatts. So it's a great project over there, and we've seen significant reductions in the bill. Following that project, we did the same thing at the terminal. We replaced or relamped 848 lights in the terminal. We chose to go above and beyond. It was initially just replacement of the LED lights and leaving the ballast in place, which is kind of the failure point. We elected to pay an additional $61,000 to bypass all the ballast throughout the terminal and eliminate those ballasts and go to straight LED technology. So as I said, that project was also funded by SCE rebates, but we did augment that project by $61,000 to make it a more durable and longer lasting project. Obviously the savings there, not only in energy, it's in staff time, in replacing bulbs and keeping the lights on basically. The payback period for that project was 3.1 years, and we reduced our load there by 22 kilowatts. So again, a big savings. And the last thing I wanted to mention is Hangar 2. We got Hangar 2 painted, so it's a lead-based paint building. We did not remediate all the lead, we encapsulated. So we did have a lead contractor on site. That's always a challenge with our World War II era buildings here. And so we got that finally done. I know that's particularly good news for Chairman Hopkins. So I'm glad we finally got that project done. That's all I have for tonight. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Jeff. And that concludes the director's report.
I would comment that the building Hangar 2 looks very nice with its new paint job.
Thank you.
Director Thompson, I have a couple of questions on the charts that we always get on the various passenger counts. Specifically, when I look at the table, Santa Barbara Airport passenger count 2020, that lists all of the airlines and the month to date, et cetera. And if I look down at the prior year to date for December, it shows just shy of 1 million passengers. And when I look at the chart below that has a bar chart, that looks like if you were to take January through December, it would be 1 million passengers. But when I go down to the next one, which is a historical passenger count, for 2019, it looks to be 500,000. But they're both called passenger count. So what am I missing?
So a couple of things here. In one instance where it's only showing the 500,000, you're talking enplanements there versus total passengers. To get to 1 million total passengers, you have to include the passengers arriving and the passengers departing. So the charts are depicting two different types of passengers.
Okay, I sort of guessed that, but I wanted to make sure since they both had the same label. The only other comment I would make is just a comment, and that's the chart at the very bottom, that I was really glad to see that although our commercial activity is down, our GA activity appears to be quite healthy. It has done much better and gained recently, and the fuel sales have gone up, which is, I think, very good news.
Yes, we are performing fairly well on the GA side. I also wanted to give a little more context to the commercial passengers. I tried to emphasize that while our numbers are down about 70% year over year, that's consistent with what other airports across the nation are seeing, but we're actually bucking the trend when compared to some smaller airports similar to our size. So Santa Barbara, it may not appear as if we're doing all that great, but I'm pretty happy with where we are right now, particularly given where we were back in April when we were down to about 3% of passenger traffic. So just a little context there.
Understood, and let's hope that we continue to grow more rapidly than some of the other places. Okay, the next item number 5. Oh, wait a
Chair.
minute, we have public comment.
Thank you.
Well, are you going to open this up to questions from the other commissioners?
Okay, I will do both of those.
Okay.
Excuse me for getting ahead of myself. Are there any questions or comments? We'll start with Commissioner Bowen.
Yes, I had a question. Aaron, when you were talking about the maintenance, I believe you said that you do not allow maintenance to protect the T hangars from damage. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Happy to, yes. So the FAA allows the airport to impose reasonable restrictions as part of the grant assurances for activities that may be inconsistent with fire department and or fire code rules and regulations, stormwater rules and regulations, anything that may tarnish the physical infrastructure that exists or create an unsightly appearance or perhaps interfere with surrounding tenants. So the FAA gives broad authority for the establishment of additional provisions that may not be normally granted within what I believe Joe Moore was referring to in his initial public comments. So we're working diligently with the FAA to ensure that we have reasonable and consistent standards that are fair to all tenants.
Okay, thank you for that. One of my other concerns on the topic of maintenance is safety, not just of the hangars or the aircraft stored in them, but occasionally as a pilot, you find yourself in the need to do something very minor that is not hitting any of the toxic issues or any of the dangerous issues that would make it safer to fly your airplane. One example might be allowing the owners to remove their cowlings to visually inspect their engine. So I'm hoping that in this process, I'm not trying to open it up to that whole process, that we find some way to define clearly what is allowed and what is not, so everybody knows what the rules are and that the rules are appropriate.
I can assure you that we will have reasonable, sufficient standards in place to permit activity and perhaps look at it on a case-by-case basis if need be. But again, discussions are continuing.
Yes, I'm sure you'll do a good job on it. Then also, Jeffrey, just a big way to go on switching to LED lighting. Not only do we have these savings of electricity, but the Fairview hangars have been having problems with their infrastructure for power, and reducing the load might help you a little bit there. So very good job that you've done there.
Thanks.
And that concludes my comments and questions.
Commissioner Khan, do you have any questions or comments?
Not at this time.
Commissioner Wilson, questions or comments?
Not at this time, thank you.
Commissioner Goodman?
No.
Commissioner Houghton?
I do not.
And Commissioner Curry?
Yeah, I have 3 questions. Thank you, Chair. Jeff, what's the status of the 495 Fairview hangars, we had a second power problem. Is that now behind us with the main power?
We looked at replacing the substation that failed in Hangar 15. That was a very expensive project. So we have temporarily supplied power from Hangar 13 into Hangar 14 and 15, and we're looking at making that permanent.
Okay, thank you. What's the status of the lease with, or the end of the lease, or the issue with the High Sierra at the restaurant?
If you'd like, Commissioner, I can answer that question. So as you know, in December, High Sierra and Flightline LLC filed suit against the city. And since that time, as you might know, civil litigation sort of lumbers along its way. And most recently, we have submitted responses to their questions, and they have done so of us. And the next steps in the month of September, we actually have a series of depositions that are scheduled with the plaintiffs in the case. So the case is moving forward. As you might know, the courts have been completely closed. So there really isn't anything going on in terms of court appearances or anything like that. And we're just dealing with the regular, typical discovery as you would at the beginning of such a case.
Okay, thanks, Deanna. And then lastly, I think this is probably for Henry. Henry, I know from an HR perspective, you can't be specific, but have we suffered, have we had any staff that have been unable to work due to the virus?
Fortunately, no. And actually, throughout the entire airport, we haven't had any reported cases of positive coronavirus reports. We have had some individuals who had scares, but the tests returned negative. So I think we've been very fortunate and, you know, a little bit lucky as well.
Thanks, Henry. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you very much. Director Thompson, I do have one other question. In one of your other communications, and maybe this is too soon to ask, there is some pavement work being done outside hangars 14 and 15, I believe. Could you comment on that, what the status of that is?
Chairman Hopkins, yes, sir. You're speaking of the Northeast Hangar project, which was just yesterday approved by the City Council to award the project. That work replaces the pavement in front of hangars 14 and 15. Work will probably commence mid-September, early October, and will last approximately 60 days or so. And it's a great project that will bring new pavement. It's about a $3 million project that's funded through Airport Improvement Program funds by the FAA.
And what impact, if any, will it have on the people who have airplanes in those hangars? How do you get your airplane in and out while you're paving, or what is this? What will happen there?
We'll coordinate that activity with our tenants as the work is getting done. So they are well aware that the project is coming. They welcome it, and we'll do the necessary coordination to make the project happen.
Thank you very much. And now we need to open this up for public comment. Our Commission Secretary, do we have any public comments on this item?
Members of the public, if you will use the raise hand icon to let me know that you would like to make comment on any of the matters discussed on this item. I see your hand, Justin. Is there anybody else who would like to make a public comment? Commissioner Hopkins, it appears that Justin Robertson is the only one who wants to do public comment. Justin,
Go ahead.
would you unmute your mic and begin speaking?
Hi, commissioners and airport staff. I just wanted to ask if there were any available tie downs and if there are planned to allow any new lease agreements for tie downs. Thank you.
Is that all that you wish to say, Justin?
That's my only question now. Thank you.
Although I know we don't normally, is it possible to give a quick question as to tie down status, or should Justin contact the administration directly?
I believe Mr. Roberts has already contacted airport staff, and he has received a response to that question. I'm not at liberty to add anything further at this time.
Okay, and nobody else has raised their hand, Maureen?
That is correct, Chair.
Then I will close public comment, and we will now go on to item number 5, which is minutes. And the recommendation is that the Airport Commission waive the reading and approve the minutes of the commission meeting of Wednesday, February 19th, and that the airport waive the reading and approve the minutes of the Airport Commission Budget Subcommittee meeting of Friday, March 13th. Do I have a motion to thereto and a second?
I move that we approve it.
I think that was moved by Commissioner Bowen and a second by Commissioner Wilson. Is that correct?
Oh, that's correct.
Okay. The next, I don't guess we need public comment on the minutes, do we?
Chair Hopkins, on the consent calendar, we normally would make a motion to approve the entire consent calendar, which consists of the minutes of the Airport Commission meeting on February 19th, the minutes of the Airport Budget Subcommittee meeting on March 13th, as well as the property management report.
Thank you. Having done the first two already, we will just go to the property management report. Do I have a motion to receive the monthly property management report?
I so move.
James Wilson moved and Dennis Houghton seconded, I believe.
Yes. Correct.
Okay. The next item is our administrative reports, and the item is a fixed base operator.
Mr. Chair, sorry to interrupt, but this Brown Act, you actually do need to take a roll call vote on those motions.
Madam Secretary, would you, we'll do both of those at the same time if we can, items 5 and 6, if we could have our roll call.
There's a motion by Commissioner Bowen, seconded by Wilson for items number 5, the minutes of the Airport Commission meeting on February 19th and the minutes of the Airport Commission Budget Subcommittee on the March 13th. Commissioner Goodman?
Yes.
Commissioner Arcuri?
Yes.
Commissioner Houghton?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Khan?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bowen?
Yes.
Chair Hopkins?
Yes.
There is a second motion by Commissioner Khan, seconded by Commissioner Houghton to approve the property management report. Commissioner Goodman?
Yes.
Commissioner Arcuri?
Yes.
Commissioner Houghton?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Khan?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bowen,
Yes.
Chair Hopkins.
Yes.
Both motions were unanimous.
The next item is item 7, fixed base operator, the FBO Southfield Development Project update. And the recommendation is that we receive a presentation.
Commissioners, tonight we will provide you with an update on the FBO and Southfield development projects. These are related capital development projects underway at the airport. While it is true we are in the middle of a pandemic, unlike anything we've ever seen before, and given the resulting operational and financial impacts, it may seem natural to pull back or delay major projects. However, now is the time we should press forward in a cautious and responsible manner so as not to lose critical time or momentum on these projects. This is precisely how we are moving forward. In our presentation, we will share with you an update on how we are moving forward and the progress we have made since we last met with you in February. And with that, Deanna Zackerson.
Good evening, commissioners, again. I think that I will probably, for the sake of bandwidth's sake, turn off my camera, and Mo will be putting up on the screen a PowerPoint presentation for you all. There we go. So it is August, and the last time that we did an update for commission on the FBO development was actually in February. February, of course, was a different world that we lived in at the time. And this evening, I'd just like to share a little bit about what we have been doing in this interim period and what our outlook really is for this project and some of the other pieces of the project that are tied to it as we move forward. Next slide, Mo. Excellent. So just to make a quick reminder, since it is some time since we've talked about this, just to remind a little bit about what this project really accomplishes for us. Fundamentally, it is a land use project, and we have a limited land resource on our airfield. And the purpose of this project, of course, is to really, for the first time, strategically look at that resource and determine what the best uses are for that property. And historically, obviously, we have worked with facilities that have been in place since the Second World War, for the most part. And this is really going to be the first opportunity for us to look at the land resource that we have and purposefully make decisions about how we put in new infrastructure and facilities. So part of that, of course, is that, as was identified preliminarily in the master plan that was adopted by the City Council at the end of 2017, we defined 2 new FBO locations on the north side of the airfield, the northeast quadrant, I should say, of the airfield, north of runway 725. So this project obviously ultimately will provide 2 new FBO locations with modern infrastructure and the facilities to go along with it. Part of that process, of course, is to select 2 FBO companies that will make an investment along with the airport, but will make a substantial investment in the airport and ultimately offer the services that are desired today and will be desired in the future by the FBO customers. And then, of course, the FBO business is very important to the airport from a financial standpoint. This is also our opportunity to really modernize the revenue streams that come from the FBO business and assure that we have a predictable long-term revenue stream for the airport. So it really is, alongside obviously the commercial aviation activities, one of the really major and important projects and developments moving forward for the airport for decades to come. Next slide, Mo. All right, I just wanted to, again, remind a little bit about, just as an overview of the many steps that we need to take, careful, methodical steps towards the issuance of an RFP for the ultimate FBO operators that will be on the field, and get to the point where we are actually putting ink to a contract and moving forward towards permitting construction. I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are today on this schematic, this board, if you will. It is with most boards of this type, sometimes 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, not quite in the order that we anticipate, but such is life. And we are being flexible as we move forward during these times. Next slide, Mo. Oh, excellent. All right, I just wanted to highlight where we are in the earlier portions of this project towards the issuance of the RFP. I think, you know, we've done quite a bit of work on assessing the needs and the locations and the infrastructure and such. And we really have spent quite a bit of time already looking at the expected investment that's going to be required, the revenue that we expect to generate, and some assumptions about the mechanics and sort of the legal framework of the future agreements. The red portion that you see on that schematic, that's really sort of what we're aiming at in the near term, and that is a pre-qualification phase. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So next slide. All right, so near-term FBO components. We still are in the definition phase of looking at what infrastructure we need sort of under the ground and the concrete that needs to be in place for these leaseholds. That's something that's ongoing concurrently with our effort to establish the interim FBO operations, both of them north of runway 725. And we talked quite a bit about that back in February. Part of that objective in getting the FBO operations both north of the main runway is that we would be able to dedicate the current south FBO footprint to commercial service at the terminal, which has been historically a longstanding issue and will continue to be moving forward. So the pre-qualification process I just showed you in that slide, before we issue the RFP, we do intend to do a pre-qualification process so that those that are ultimately proposing on our FBO business are actually qualified to do so. It's a smarter move for us to narrow that field earlier in the process rather than have firms go to the expense of proposing when they may not realistically have the capabilities of investing in the airport as is going to be necessary. So, but after that, of course, we will be issuing an RFP, and that is still on the schedule for 2021. Issue and complete that RFP process. The schematic, this is, or this map, I should say, overview, a reminder again from February when we talked about what the interim FBO landscape was going to look like, with Signature largely still in the upper northeast quadrant of the airfield and Atlantic relocating to the northwest, primarily northwest quadrant of the airfield west of the parallel runways. So next slide, Mo. So where are we since COVID-19? We, of course, our next step, as was anticipated in February, was outreach. And of course, that outreach has been deferred. As I think many of us have experienced in different areas of our lives, we anticipated early on that perhaps the pandemic would pass faster than it actually has. And so we held on hope for some time that we would be able to execute the outreach with a slight deferment. We recognize now that as we see with our schools that are not opening as we had hoped, I think we all thought it was fairly incredible that our schools went the entire first half of this year virtually. It now looks like we're starting off virtually in the fall as well. So we're recognizing that we too are going to have to adjust our outreach plan. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in detail in a second. Our existing FBO leases went into holdover status in May. In February, we would never have thought that would have been the case. But given that everything pretty much went into a holdover during the early phase of the pandemic, the most reasonable thing to do was just to keep things in place. So we are working on completing the interim FBO lease agreements, and that is imminent. It's actually turned out to be a good thing, as I'll talk a little bit more about the due diligence work that Atlantic, the relocating FBO, has been able to do in the last few months that ultimately will make our lease agreements better than they would have otherwise been. The Southfield expansion project is moving forward. I'll talk more in detail about that. However, the construction that was anticipated to happen is going to be deferred. Next slide. So as Henry mentioned, it's easy for us to become very pessimistic in a downturn like this and feel as though it's appropriate to sort of freeze in our tracks and wait for the storm to pass. But this isn't the first time that we have been hit by a disruption to aviation, in particular commercial aviation. And we've seen historically that it recovers in time. And as Chair Hopkins noted, corporate aviation or the private aviation has been really showing some remarkable resilience. So the FBOs, even though they initially took the same sort of impact as others did in the beginning, they have been able to bounce back. Another reason for optimism is that this time around, as opposed to earlier instances when aviation has been adversely affected, the federal government has had an appreciation for our challenges. And so, as you know, earlier this year, we were part of the CARES Act funding that really has been beneficial and really critical to keeping the airport on track with many of its obligations, its debt service, et cetera, in light of some of the revenue losses that we've suffered. And then, as Henry also mentioned, Santa Barbara has remained fundamentally strong. We've looked at other areas in California, other airports in California, and we've really seen that we have been amongst the airports, the stronger airports, particularly in our size and slightly larger. We don't have international traffic, which in this case has been very beneficial to us. So we really have maintained a fundamentally strong position. So that's something to be very, very appreciative of. Next slide. So this slide right here, I have plagiarized. I shouldn't say plagiarized. I have borrowed from a presentation that Henry and I were a part of just last week with the Boeing company. Much time has been spent over the last couple of months really interacting with the aviation industry and trying to get a sense of how we are performing and what kind of expectations we could have for recovery. And so this slide, as I said, was from a presentation with the Boeing company last week, and where they really emphasized, and you can see here on this chart, where we've had some previous shocks to the system, the aviation system, 2001, and then again, the recession that came in 2008. And you can see how within 2 to 3 years' time, the aviation market recovered. And so they really are anticipating that while this dip may in fact prove to be somewhat deeper than in the past, they are optimistic that there will be a recovery. And if the Boeing company is confident there will be a recovery, I think we can be pretty confident that that is indeed going to be the case. So more reason to feel optimistic. Next slide. And it'll be quick to the next slide. So our next steps with our FBO development. So some of our outcomes in the shorter term interim period before the complete redevelopment of the FBO business. Of course, as we've talked about for quite some time about airfield movements with the Taxiway H project, we constantly look for ways to make airfield movements safer for all types of aircraft. And in this interim period, moving the FBO operations to the north side of the field will achieve that. And in addition, with the RON, the remain overnight parking spaces that would be created on the south side, that makes those airfield movements safer as well. And of course, we will have that space made available for commercial aircraft parking when that upturn or that uptick does occur. Again, we will achieve a more equitable sharing of the FBO space, as you saw on that overhead map. Our lease terms, this is one of the things that we're really happy about, is developing equitable lease terms in a new lease agreement that is new and modern for the times and will work as a more effective tool for the airport and the FBOs to live by. And then, of course, as we also talked about in February, one of our major goals, of course, in the interim period was to maintain revenue neutrality for the airport. And of course, in these times when we are struggling to maintain revenue neutrality in so many other areas, this is going to be very important to us. And then again, as we've talked about before, managing the fuel farm agreements on coterminous agreements with the overall FBO operation. Next slide. So outreach. This is our next objective here, of course. As I mentioned before, it's time for us to accept that COVID is going to be here for a while. And really, as in so many other areas, harness the technology that is now out there and very quickly come to the fore to solicit the feedback that we're looking for our FBO project. And next slide. So as we've talked about before, even if it is a virtual outreach strategy, we will still reach our primary target audiences that we need to reach out to and collect input from: businesses, FBO users, the incumbents and other potential FBO proposers, obviously the neighbors around the airport, City of Goleta, and the general public. And we also, of course, want to really, for the first time in a long time, gather information about what is important to the users of the FBO services, facilities, access, needs, and get some input on what the process is going to look like. And offer a chance to learn about the future of general aviation at SBA. Okay, next slide, Mo. This is where we get to have a little bit of an interactive experience here. So working with our consultant, Jacobs, which works on a lot of different infrastructure projects, they very quickly, again, to use the word, pivoted because of the need to continue to work on critical projects, public projects, and get input from stakeholders, even in these very challenging and different times as far as the constraints of the coronavirus. So this right here, this overview, this is an example of what Jacobs has done with another project. Oops, we need to go back a slide. There we go. What Jacobs has done with another project, this example is a roads project, but essentially you can create a visual like this. It becomes sort of like a public fair of sorts, okay, where the actual picture in the background could be something that your stakeholders would recognize as a Santa Barbara environment. But then you have these various whiteboards here. And I don't know if Mo will be able to get this to move, but we'll try. But basically, this is something that we can promote to our stakeholders. And we'll go back again. And if we can't get this to work, Mo, this is just fine. We can kind of talk through what this looks like. So essentially, you would go to this interface. You could click on that link where you could sign in. Oh, look, there we go. Excellent. We figured it out here. Okay. And of course, you put your information in, who you are, what interest group you're perhaps representing. And this whole graphic sort of pivots from side to side, and it's creates as much of a real feeling information environment as possible. I mean, it's really pretty intuitive as well, because really you move your cursor over these various icons and each one would then open to some sort of a graphic presentation with audio talking about the project and give you various kinds of information. This is really kind of slick. And if you can imagine it being in the airport conference rooms, or, oh, why not on the beach somewhere, some place that's quintessentially Santa Barbara. And then as we work our way around here, you'll see some icons right there that if you click on those, you set them up to actually collect the feedback from the individuals that interact with this. And one of the things that we would do here is actually craft a not only a place for folks to provide their sort of verbatim input in, you know, whatever way they want to provide it, but also create more of a survey format that could provide us with some more quantitative data that we can use in the development. So right now we are in the process of working in-house with our marketing coordinators helping with this, as well as our consultants, to really develop the components that become a part of this. And hopefully that is fairly self-explanatory. I can move to our next project, unless there's any questions at this point. I'm happy to take them, but otherwise the next near-term objective is the relocation of Atlantic Aviation. And for those who may not have been at the airport recently, this is the outside of the building that is intended for Atlantic Aviation to move into. It's at 1503 Cook Place. The front of it doesn't look all that exciting right now. In fact, I think the front doors have plenty of flyers about social distancing and that kind of thing. But this is where Atlantic Aviation would move to. This space would actually provide Atlantic Aviation with about 7,000 square feet of space, but it is currently divided up amongst 3 different tenants. So we can go to the next slide. All right, so the relocation of Atlantic Aviation. COVID has definitely slowed that process. Initially, when we were under pretty much the full stay-at-home orders from the state of California, Atlantic could not get their designers, their folks from their corporate headquarters really even into the space and starting to work on the project. But as soon as we went into the stage 2 of the reopening, they were able to start work on this. So they have, to their credit, I have to say, they have really been diligently working on this project. They do have a local architect, which is obviously something that's really smart to do. And they have been evaluating design concepts, looking at the base building, what they've got to work with, and what the potential costs are for rebuilding that space or designing that space. So they are getting closer to understanding what it is going to take, what the process for pre-design, permitting, and construction is going to take. It is going to be, you know, a project that's going to require architectural board of review, you know, planning review and such. So all those things do, of course, take some time. And of course, we do need to understand what the costs are going to be. Once we have better information about that, and we really do anticipate that that is something that is going to happen in the short term, because they do have a design. It's just evaluating the finer points of costs and how to move forward. We will be able to reestablish a new timeline for the relocation of the tenants that are currently in the building. It's not pending anytime soon. Due to the delays and now the anticipated time that we think it's going to take to get to actual construction. So the interim lease execution needs to take place. And as I said before, it's actually been a good thing that that has not happened yet, because now we have more information on what this process is going to look like as we look at the new requirements for the lease. So next slide. All right, now I'd just like to talk a little bit about the other component to this project, which is the Southfield expansion project. As you can see, and I don't have a pointer, but in the upper right-hand corner with the little stars around the building, that's the current Atlantic Aviation FBO Service Center. So that, of course, is going to be, that is what is, their operation would be relocated north. And this project, of course, would ultimately create 3 new remain overnight parking spaces for commercial aircraft, as well as redesign the ready return parking lot for airport rental cars. Next slide. So where is that project today? One new development is that the FAA has identified this project as a safety project because it creates designated space for RON parking, which we have not previously had other than parking planes at the jet bridges. We've had to sort of improvise as to where we have parked those aircraft, and this would be obviously a much more purposeful way to do it. The preliminary design concept was finalized prior to COVID, and we also were able to define what the GA or single engine tie down area in the south field area, what that's going to look like, where it will be, how many aircraft we think we can get into that area. The design engineer has been selected, the contract was awarded, and the survey work, in other words, the core drilling and some of that work actually commenced this month. So we are beginning to make some progress on that project. Next slide. All right, critical milestones for that project. There are plenty of them. This project will require a coastal development permit. It will require review by the Architectural Board of Review, perhaps the Historic Landmarks Committee. We will need to develop a stormwater management plan for the runoff in that area. And then, of course, we are committed to consultation with various stakeholders, including the city of Goleta. So we would anticipate that the design and permitting would be completed by December of 2021. So again, there are many steps in this project as well as the overall FBO project. And so there's plenty to do to keep this project moving in sort of a methodical fashion. Okay, next slide. And that is it. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Deanna. We will start with Commissioner Bowen. Do you have any questions or comments about this presentation?
No questions at this time.
Next up is Commissioner Khan.
No questions.
Commissioner Wilson.
I think that it was a very in-depth and thorough presentation, and I'm pleased to see that we're that well organized, but no further questions.
Commissioner Goodman.
No questions right now, no.
Commissioner Houghton.
I like what I see. Great presentation. Thanks.
Commissioner Curry.
Nothing for me.
I have a couple of questions. I know that you can't give specific dates for these things, but could you, there were 3 items on the FBO RFP that I'd like to get as your best estimate at this time. When do you think it would be released? When would it be due back to us? And when would the award likely be made? Maybe if it's even only the quarter and the year, as opposed to trying to tie it down any tighter than that, would that be possible?
Yeah, I think in general terms, yes. I think we are still hoping that the RFP will be issued in 2021. We're confident that we can still accomplish that. Whether it will be mid-2021, I mean, that is obviously what we would target for. Then it is a little bit contingent upon how tightly we can manage the RFP process. We look at other airports that have done these processes, and they can, unfortunately, if they are not managed quite in a quite disciplined way, they can take up to 9 months to complete, and we don't want to see that happen. But realistically, once you issue the RFP, there's a couple of months at the front end where you allow the proposers to ask questions, clarification, make sure that every potential proposer understands what you are asking for in your request for proposals. That's really absolutely critical that they understand what is expected. And then they go away and put together their proposals. And realistically, you need to give the proposers roughly 3 to 4 months, probably closer to 4 months, to put together their proposals, because they're pretty comprehensive. They're going to be development proposals that have everything from infrastructure portions to renderings, designs for what they're actually going to build, and financial projections. So you need to give your proposers some time to be able to do that. Then there's an evaluation process that could take a couple of months to complete. And then once you have decided on your scoring and your ranking of the proposals, and there's an announcement, there is always the possibility, although you really, of course, want to avoid at all costs, but there is always the possibility of a protest. And, that out of everything we intend to do, that's really our goal, is to avoid a protest, to have a process that is as clean as possible, so that even those that are not selected understand why they were not selected, and that there is a complete lack of controversy about the selection. So put that all together, and you're still talking about 4, 5, 6, you're still talking, close to 8 months, maybe 7, 8 months. It depends a little bit as well as to the time of year that you issue it. Holidays and things like that can have an impact. So I hope I answered your question, all parts of it. If I didn't, please remind me.
No, you did a very good job. I think in summary, if I understood you right, mid-2021 for release, and realistically mid-2022 for an award.
Yeah, that's
mid to latter.
Yes.
Okay. The other question, you said that you have a tie down for the GA on the south part of the field. You have a tie down design. Could you share that with the commission and the public? Not now, I assume you don't have it readily available, but in the very near future?
Yes, I think we could do that. One of the things that we have been challenged with is that we are, of course, relocating the city's tie-down area, and we are also in need of accommodating some of Atlantic Aviation's single-engine aircraft tie-downs. So, we are expanding the airfield footprint, essentially, in that portion, but we're still challenged with trying to get the number of available spaces that we need in that area. So that's been a little bit of a puzzle back and forth as to how we can do that. But we have a design that we settled on earlier in the year, and that's what was included in the design package. So yes, we can share that. It's not a guarantee that it might not change, of course, but that's at least what our presumptions are at this point.
Thank you very much. Let's see, everybody has had a chance to comment, and there is no vote on this item. So I'm guessing, Deanna, you're taking item number 8, which is the
Chair
Hopkins.
Chair Hopkins.
Yes?
Go ahead,
Public comment.
David.
Thank you, Tava. Is there any public, I will open it now for public comment. Maureen, do we have any public comment on this item?
Members of the public, raise your hand. I see you, Joseph Moore. Is there anybody else who has comment on this matter? Chair Hopkins, I only see Joseph Moore. Joseph, would,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Maureen.
Hi, I just wanted to comment on I don't remember what Deanna called it, but the virtual maybe open house section that you was in your presentation. I think that's really interesting and possibly a good platform for maybe other issues or changes at the airport, and maybe the administration would consider utilizing a platform such as that for other public engagement situations, especially since we are going to be in this new normal of virtual meetings and such. And just a second note, I'm excited at the possibility of there being some sponsored controlled, possibly transient parking in the south side. I know that wasn't specifically in there, but even if it's just more tie down space, that's always good for the airport, I think. So thank you, and that's all.
Are there any other public comments?
Chair, I have no other hands raised at this time.
Then I will close the public comments at this time. And we will move. Yes?
May I be recognized?
Yes. I'm sorry, Tava, our Assistant City Attorney, please go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Chair Hopkins. I was just going to mention, I think we did open it up for questions by the commissioners, but now that we've had public comment, if we could open it up for comments or if any of the commissioners may have them.
Okay, I will go down the list again. I have no further comments or questions. Commissioner Bowen.
No comment.
Commissioner Khan.
No comment.
Commissioner Wilson.
No comment.
Commissioner Goodman.
No comment.
Commissioner Houghton.
No comment.
Commissioner Curry.
Silence is golden.
Thank you. The next item is Subject 8, lease agreement with Dynasyn, Inc. Who's going to handle this? Deanna, is that you?
Yes, Chair Hopkins. I have a presentation for that, and Mo is going to put it up. We actually have 3 lease items here. They may be a tad out of order in the presentation, but and they need to be approved on a separate approval, each one of them. But I will go through them with you. As I mentioned before, we have not had a lot of leasing activity going on during COVID. That is probably fairly intuitive. So what we have here today is renewal leases for long-term tenants. And these are leases that expired in the recent months during the COVID hiatus. And they were placed on temporary usage permits until we could get these leases approved. So they have been contractually bound, but understood that it would take some time to get full approval for these. So actually, if I can take things just a tad out of order, we have 2 leases that are with a consultant that has been on airport property for some time. Consultant named Paul Taylor. He's a sole proprietor. He is an electric design engineer, and he leases 2 spaces on Francis Botello Road. And actually, Mo, if you could skip to the map, there is a map page. Maybe this is actually a good moment to show where he's located. That is a building that is directly behind Direct Relief. And it has a number of distinct units in it. And Paul Taylor occupied one of those units, and then due to expansion, some projects that he received, leased a second unit, and now is renewing the lease for both of those units. Still a relatively shorter term lease. And if Mo, if you could flip back 1 slide, or 2 slides actually. So his first unit, Suite B, I believe these are all more or less the same size. This is an 800 square foot unit. These are old buildings, so they don't command incredibly high lease rates, but nonetheless, an important revenue stream for us. So this is a 1-year lease with 2 one-year lease options. And then on the next slide is Suite D, which is in the same building, a little bit better condition. And again, 1 year with 2 one-year lease options. So again, they're 2 separate leases, 2 separate units with different lease rates. That's why they're done separately. So if I'm not sure which would be the most appropriate route to go here, if I can talk about proposed lease action 3 perhaps, and then vote on them individually if that works.
That works for me unless anybody objects.
Chair Hopkins and Ms. Nickerson, yes, we need to vote on them separately. We'll be opening, we're in item 8, which is Dynison. Ms. Zackerson can go through all of them in a single presentation, but when she concludes her presentation, we'll go back to item 8, which is Dynison. We will open for questions, public comment, and then comments by the commissioners, and then a voice vote, and then we'll move on to 9, and then subsequently to 10. So, thank you.
That'd be fantastic. So we'll move on to proposed lease action 3, which is a tenant that I believe, Mo, if you can move once, oops, other direction. One more. All right, Dynison. I think most of us are probably pretty familiar with Dynison. Dynison has been a tenant at the airport since 1972, and they are located in a building close to the control tower. And actually, they're just south of the control tower. That's right, on Dean Arnold Place. So they operate in the area of research and development. And they are looking for a 5-year renewal. They have about 4,000 square feet of office space. It's a pretty nice building. And as I think most of us know, whenever we seem to have flooding on our property, they are the ones who seem to be able to keep the water out of everybody. They've done some really nice improvements to that building. And they have about 2,400 square feet of land at 24 cents a square foot, which is pretty typical for land around here at the airport. So their monthly rent is just a little bit more than $8,000 a month, not including their utilities. And if you go to the next slide, Mo, you'll see Dynison. So they're just, is this map correct? I mean, I see that where they are. I was looking at where they are in relationship to the air traffic control tower. Great tenant, and they've been with us for a long time and are very happy to be offering them another 5-year lease. So with that, that concludes all of those lease actions. Do you have any questions?
Okay, so we will go back to item 8, which was the lease agreement of Dynison, the last one that we just had. And I will go through the commissioners to see if you have any questions, starting with Commissioner Bowen.
No questions.
Commissioner Khan.
No questions.
Commissioner Wilson.
No questions.
Commissioner Goodman.
No questions.
Commissioner Houghton.
No questions.
Commissioner Arcuri.
I don't have a question on item 8, but when we get through 8, 9, and 10, Deanna, I have a leasing question that doesn't involve these 3.
Okay, so the next item is for public, open it for public comment. Maureen, do we have any raised hands there?
Members of the public, raise your hand if you would like to comment on Administrative Report number 8. Chair Hopkins, there are no raised hands.
At this point, I will close the public comment. And I guess we have to go back through each of the commissioners again to see if you have any comments at this time, starting with Commissioner Bowen?
No comments.
Commissioner Khan?
No comment.
Commissioner Wilson?
No comment.
Commissioner Goodman?
No comment.
Commissioner Houghton?
No comment.
Commissioner Curry?
Nothing.
Now, I do have a question for our attorney. Can we do this with a voice vote, or do we need to do a roll call under these circumstances? Normally, we would just do a voice vote.
You need a roll call voice vote, Chair Hopkins.
Thank you very much. A roll call. Maureen, would you call the roll?
Do we have a motion in a second?
I'm sorry. Who would like to move to approve this lease number 8 with Diamondson?
I'll do it. I move to approve the lease for Dynaston Inc.
And a second, please.
I'll second it, Paul Bowen.
That was a motion by Commissioner Houghton and a second by Commissioner Bowen. And now a roll call, please.
Commissioner Goodman? Commissioner Goodman, can you unmute your mic?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I approve.
Thank you. Commissioner Arcuri?
Approved. Yes.
Commissioner Houghton?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes.
Commissioner Khan?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bowen?
Yes.
Chair Hopkins?
Yes.
The motion was unanimous.
Thank you. The next item is item 8, which we've already received a presentation on, the lease agreement with Paul V. Taylor for Suite B, Bravo. So let us start off by saying if there are any comments, starting with Commissioner Bowen.
No comments.
Commissioner Khan.
No comments.
Commissioner Wilson.
No comment.
Commissioner Goodman.
No comment.
Commissioner Houghton.
No comment.
Commissioner Arcuri.
Nothing.
Then at this point, I would like to open it for public comment. If you have a public comment, please raise your hand. Maureen, what do you have?
I do not have any raised hands from the public, Chair Hopkins.
And at this point, I will close the public comment and we will go back for a last comment by the commissioners, starting with Commissioner Bowen.
No comment.
Commissioner Khan.
No comment.
Commissioner Wilson.
No comment.
Commissioner Goodman.
No comment.
Commissioner Houghton.
No comment.
Commissioner Arcuri. Commissioner Arcuri. Commissioner Arcuri, any comment? We did not pick up your audio, Commissioner Arcuri. Still no audio. Commissioner Arcuri, can you, whoops, he just disappeared. There he is. Commissioner Arcuri, can you hear us?
I can now. No comments.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve this lease?
So
I'll make
moved.
a motion. I make a motion to approve a lease agreement with Paul V. Taylor in Suite B.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So moved by Commissioner Houghton, seconded by Commissioner Goodman. We will do a roll call vote here. Commissioner Bowen. I'm sorry, Maureen, that's your job.
Commissioner Goodman?
Yes. Approve.
Commissioner Arcuri?
Well, just to shake it up, I'll say affirmative.
Commissioner Houghton?
Approved.
Commissioner Wilson?
Approve.
Commissioner Khan?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bowen?
Yes.
Chair Hopkins?
Yes.
The motion was unanimous.
The next item is, item 10, the lease agreement with Paul V. Taylor for Suite D. We will start off by seeing if any of the commissioners have questions concerning this lease, starting with Commissioner Bowen,
No questions.
Commissioner Khan,
No questions.
Commissioner Wilson,
No questions.
Commissioner Goodman,
No questions.
Commissioner Houghton,
No questions.
Commissioner Curry.
Nothing here.
We will open it now for public comment. If there's any comment from members of the public, please raise your hand, and our secretary will let us know if anybody has done that.
Chair Hopkins, there are no raised hands.
At this point, I close the public comment and go back one last time for comment from the commissioners, starting with Commissioner Bowen,
No comment.
Commissioner Khan,
No comment.
Commissioner Wilson,
No comment.
Commissioner Goodman,
No comment.
Commissioner Houghton,
No comment.
Commissioner Curry.
And as my kids would affirm, very unusually, I have no comment.
Deanna, did you want to say something? I thought you jumped in there at one point.
No, I just recall that Commissioner Curry had a question. Want to make sure I didn't miss it.
We'll hold that until after this vote. So at this point, we'll have a roll call, please.
Would you do a motion?
I'm sorry, we didn't have a motion. Who would like to make the motion this time?
I
So
move.
I think I heard Jim Wilson move.
That's correct.
And do we have a second? And we have Karen Khan as a second. Now we can have a roll call.
Commissioner Goodman,
Yes, approved.
Commissioner R. Curry,
Absolutely, undoubtedly, yes.
Commissioner Houghton,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Approve.
Commissioner Khan,
Approve.
Commissioner Vice Chair Bowen,
Yes.
Chair Hopkins.
Yes.
The vote was unanimous.
Now, Commissioner R. Curry, you said you had a question here at the end.
I did. Can you give us, Mo, not Mo, Deanna. What's the leasing status of the new buildings over there in front of Direct Relief?
Commissioner Curry, actually that is an easy question to answer. They're all occupied except for one unit. And that is the unit that is behind the coffee shop that just opened this week. Dean, a coffee shop, opened on Monday. I think they opened a little soft opening at the end of last week, but they are open for business. That's pretty exciting. Other than that, like I said, we just have that one unit that we continue to try to lease. But as I mentioned, leasing has not been particularly easy during this time.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, the last item I'd like to ask is, do any of the commissioners have any items that they would like to request to be added to the agenda for our September meeting? I will start off going down. I'll go through all of them. We'll start off with Commissioner Bowen.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'd like to request that we do a budget presentation. I know we went through a budget last spring at the subcommittee level meeting, but so much has changed. I'm very concerned about the finances at the airport in our COVID-19 period of time. So I would like a presentation on the status of our budget at our next meeting.
Okay, Commissioner Khan.
Nothing.
Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you.
I gather you had nothing. I didn't hear that. Commissioner Wilson? Commissioner Wilson, shake your head if you've got anything, or if you don't have anything, I should say. We're not hearing you. Well, I am going to go to Commissioner Goodman.
No,
Do you have
nothing.
Jim?
All right, let's go back to Commissioner Wilson for a moment. Do you have anything you would like to add to next month's agenda?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Now, Commissioner Goodman.
I do not.
Commissioner Houghton.
I do not.
Commissioner Curry.
Negative.
Okay, and last, I would like to second Commissioner Bowen's request. I think that since he and I are the only two who saw the presentation back in February, it would be good for all of the commission to see what our budget was and what it is now, and hopefully a month from now it'll be a little bit better than it is now, and things will be improved. Since everybody's had a chance at the end and there's nothing else, I think, Director Thompson, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, Chair Hopkins. First of all, I'd like to just remind everyone that we did present an initial budget to at least 2 subcommittee members back in March, I believe it was. Since then, our budget has changed significantly. While that budget was changing or evolving, all the way up to the approval by City Council, we did share that information with the Commission. So you have received that information. However, I'm happy to bring that information back to you at the September meeting to review what we have already shared with you. We've shared with you our revised budget, and we have shared with you a budget reduction plan, you may recall, as well. So the information we bring back to you will or should look familiar to you because we have shared that information already.
Thank you very much. At this time, we are adjourned. Thank you all, and thank you, Maureen, for making all of this work.